This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome to a deep dive into the Renaissance. We're going way beyond like just names and dates.
Yeah.
To uncover some really, really surprising facts about this era, I've got like a ton of articles and notes here.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to get started.
Well, it's interesting how we talk about the Renaissance as like this sudden burst of creativity and innovation. But really, its origins are still debated. And, it wasn't just a spontaneous thing.
Right. And it's not just about like the what of the Renaissance, but the why. Like one theory connects the Renaissance to, of all things, the Black Death.
Yeah. It might seem counterintuitive, right? That a devastating plague could lead to a period of cultural flourishing. But some historians suggest that the Black Death's impact on 14th century Italy was so huge that it actually helped set the stage.
Okay, I'm hooked. How could a tragedy like that lead to a Renaissance? Could it be that the sheer scale of the devastation, forced people to confront their own mortality and maybe made them like reevaluate their priorities?
That's one theory. Yeah, this intense awareness of, life's fragility may have shifted focus towards earthly pursuits, kind of a desire to celebrate human potential and make the most of the time they had. And that really aligns with some key themes that we see emerging during the Renaissance.
It's a sobering thought, but it makes sense. It's like after experiencing like widespread death, there's this renewed appreciation for life.
Yeah.
And, a drive to make a mark on the world.
Yeah.
But our sources also mention some economic factors at play, right?
Oh, absolutely. Northern Italy was a major hub for trade, bringing in wealth, even though the region lacked like abundant natural resources. And this is where it gets interesting. Some argue that the wealthy had limited investment options. So, they couldn't just buy more land or ships. So they poured their resources into something new, patronizing the arts.
Wow. So instead of building like a bigger fleet, they're commissioning breathtaking frescoes and sculptures. It makes you wonder if those incredible works of art would even exist without this unique economic situation. But our sources also suggest that the Renaissance didn't just like appear out of thin air in Italy.
Exactly. Some historians argue that the seeds of change were already being sown across Europe, even before Italy became the center stage. They point to like proto-Renaissance movements as early as the 1300s, particularly in areas like Flanders, where you see this growing interest in realism and human emotion in art.
So it's more like Italy fanned the flames of a fire that was already smoldering across Europe. What stands out to you about these different theories? It's fascinating to think about all these forces converging to spark the Italian Renaissance.
It really highlights how historical events are rarely isolated incidents.
Right.
They're part of a complex web of social, economic, and even, as we see with the Black Death, biological factors.
Speaking of complex webs, let's dive into Renaissance humanism. This was a movement that went way beyond just dusting off old books. What made it so revolutionary?
You're right, it was a fundamental shift in thinking. Humanism in the Renaissance was all about rediscovering and celebrating the intellectual and artistic achievements of ancient Greece and Rome. But it wasn't just about mimicking the past, it was about using that wisdom to spark new ways of thinking, questioning established norms, and pushing boundaries.
Our sources paint this vivid picture of scholars like Petrarch, driven by an almost insatiable desire to find lost manuscripts. He spent years tracking down works by Roman authors like Cicero and Seneca. Imagine the thrill of unearthing one of those lost treasures, a text that hadn't been read in centuries.
It must have felt like rediscovering a whole civilization, and that excitement, that passion for knowledge, is at the heart of Renaissance humanism. But it's important to note that this movement wasn't static. It went through different phases, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. First, we have the Latin phase, focused on those Roman authors, followed by a Greek phase, which introduced a whole new wave of ideas and perspectives. From the East, it makes you wonder what new avenues of thought opened up when those Greek texts came to light.
That's an excellent point. And this wasn't just a scholarly pursuit. It had real-world implications. This rediscovery of ancient wisdom fueled a shift towards valuing human potential and achievement. Humanists began questioning traditional authorities and emphasizing individual reason and experience. It's a stark contrast to the more faith-centric worldview of the Middle Ages.
So while the Middle Ages were more focused on like theological discussions, the Renaissance saw this resurgence of interest. in understanding the human experience through
Mhm.
philosophy, history, and the arts.
Exactly. It's like a shift from looking up at the heavens to looking inward and outward at the world around us.
And that shift is so beautifully reflected in the art of the Renaissance. I'm looking at some images of these incredible paintings and sculptures, and it's hard not to be just awestruck. But we need to go beyond just appreciating the aesthetics, right? We need to understand the why behind the what.
Absolutely. Let's take architecture as an example. Think about Filippo Brunelleschi, this Florentine architect who cracked the code of Roman architecture. His work on the dome of the Florence Cathedral was a groundbreaking achievement. It wasn't just beautiful, it was a symbol of human ingenuity, showcasing the ability to push architectural boundaries, using knowledge from the past.
And wasn't that dome a feat of engineering as much as artistry? To
Yeah.
construct something so grand and innovative during that time must have been mind-blowing.
Oh, it was truly a marvel of the age. And while Brunelleschi was reviving classical techniques in Italy, we see fascinating developments in Northern Europe. The Flemish painters, for example, were pioneers in oil painting, a technique that allowed for incredible realism and detail.
Oh, we can't forget about artists like Jan van Eyck. His paintings, like the famous Arnolfini portrait, were not only visually stunning, but also filled with symbolism and hidden meanings. It's like every brushstroke tells a story.
And let's not overlook Peter Bruegel the Elder. He captures these captivating scenes of everyday life, brimming with detail and humanity. He gives us this incredible window into the lives of ordinary people during the Renaissance.
His work reminds us that the Renaissance wasn't just about grand cathedrals
Yeah.
and powerful patrons. It was also about the lives of farmers, merchants, and families, going about their daily routines.
Exactly. And these artistic shifts weren't just about adopting new techniques or styles. They reflect a changing worldview, a growing interest in the human experience, and the beauty of the natural world. It's all connected.
It's amazing how art serves as a mirror to the ideas and values of a society. What stands out to you about these artistic innovations? It's like each masterpiece gives us a glimpse into the soul of the Renaissance.
I think what's most striking is the sheer diversity of expression. You have the grandeur and idealism of Italian Renaissance art, alongside the intricate realism and symbolism of the Northern Renaissance. It highlights how this movement wasn't monolithic. It took on different forms and reflected the unique character of each region.
And let's not forget about the Black Death's influence. On this evolving world, we've already touched on how it might have indirectly contributed to the rise of the Renaissance. But its impact goes way beyond the immediate tragedy.
You're right. It's crucial to understand the Black Death's ripple effect on European society. The economic consequences were particularly surprising. While the plague caused widespread death, it also led to a dramatic decrease in land values.
Which actually benefited ordinary people, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly they could afford property, something that was previously out of reach for many. It's like this terrible tragedy inadvertently created opportunities for social mobility.
Exactly. And with fewer laborers available, wages increased. This created a wealthier populace, with more disposable income to spend on things like art and culture.
So we have this tragic paradox. The Black Death, while undeniably horrific, may have played a role in creating the conditions that fostered the artistic and cultural blossoming of the Renaissance. What a complex and thought-provoking concept.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of history and how events can have unintended consequences, both positive and negative.
And beyond the economic impact, the Black Death also reshaped social and religious beliefs. How did it affect the relationship between people and the church?
Well, the church's perceived failings, in the face of such widespread suffering, led many to question its authority and doctrines. This might have contributed to a growing sense of secularism. People began seeking answers outside of traditional religious framework.
It's like the plague shook the very foundations of faith, forcing people to reevaluate their beliefs and search for new sources of meaning and understanding.
Exactly. And this questioning of authority, this willingness to look beyond traditional explanations, aligns with the spirit of inquiry that characterized the Renaissance.
So, the Black Death, a tragic chapter in human history, may have inadvertently contributed to a cultural shift towards questioning, exploration, and ultimately the celebration of human potential that defined the Renaissance.
It's a complex and nuanced legacy, but one that's crucial to consider when understanding the forces that shaped this era.
Now let's trace the Renaissance's journey beyond Italy. How did this movement spread across Europe? And what were some of the key factors that contributed to its diffusion?
Well, it wasn't confined to a single region. Its influence spread like wildfire. carried by artists, scholars, and even soldiers.
Right. Our sources are full of interesting anecdotes about how the Renaissance arrived in different countries, like in France, where King Charles VIII, after his invasion of Italy, was so captivated by Italian art and culture that he brought it back to France with him. He even invited Leonardo da Vinci himself to live and work in France.
That's a prime example of how royal patronage played a crucial role in disseminating Renaissance ideas. Kings and queens became collectors and patrons, commissioning works from Italian artists and bringing their styles and techniques to new lands.
And it wasn't just France. Hungary also became a center for Renaissance art north of the Alps. Thanks to King Matthias Corvinus and his marriage to a Neapolitan princess, suddenly their royal court became a hub of artistic activity, showcasing the influence of Italian Renaissance styles.
But as the Renaissance traveled, it didn't just replicate itself, it blended with local cultures, creating unique regional adaptations.
It's like a cultural exchange program, with each country taking the core ideas of the Renaissance and infusing them with their own traditions and aesthetics. For example, in England, the focus shifted to literature and music, with Shakespeare taking center stage and revolutionizing English theater.
And in Poland, we see a flourishing of intellectual activity. Copernicus, working during the Polish Renaissance, revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos with his heliocentric theory. It's a testament to how the Renaissance inspired innovation and discovery across a wide range of fields.
It's incredible how these countries each embrace the spirit of the Renaissance in their own way.
And that's one of the most fascinating aspects of this era. It wasn't a static movement. It was dynamic and adaptable, evolving as it encountered different cultures and traditions.
It makes you wonder, how did the Renaissance evolve as it spread? Did it become something entirely new as it mingled with different cultures?
That's a fantastic question, and it leads us to another important consideration. While we often romanticize the Renaissance as this golden age, our sources remind us that it wasn't a utopia.
Ah, yes. The Renaissance had its dark side too. Despite all the advancements in art, science, and philosophy, some social problems actually worsened during this time. It's like a tug of war between progress and persistent challenges.
Exactly. For example, while the Renaissance saw a resurgence of humanist ideals, it also witnessed the rise of Machiavellian politics. We see powerful individuals, driven by ambition and self-interest, sometimes at the expense of others.
Right. Think of Cesare Borgia, whose ruthlessness and cunning made him a perfect example of Machiavellian principles in action.
His story highlights the darker side of power dynamics during the Renaissance, where ambition and political maneuvering often took precedence over ethical considerations.
And then there were the wars of religion. That tore Europe apart. It's a stark reminder that the Renaissance wasn't just about beautiful art and intellectual discussions. It was also a time of conflict and violence.
And tragically, the persecution of those accused of witchcraft intensified during this era. It's a stark reminder that progress and enlightenment don't always go hand in hand.
It's like a shadow lurking behind the brilliance of the Renaissance, reminding us that even in times of great intellectual and artistic flourishing, humanity still grapples with its darker impulses.
Exactly. It's important to acknowledge these complexities and contradictions to gain a more complete understanding of the Renaissance.
It's a reminder that history is never black and white. It's a tapestry woven with threads of both darkness and light. While Renaissance figures believed they were breaking free from the darkness of the Middle Ages, they also grappled with their own set of challenges.
It raises an important question. Was the Renaissance more about perception than perfection? Were people simply more aware of the changes happening around them, and therefore more likely to view their time as a new era?
It's a fascinating point. Perhaps the Renaissance was more about a shift in perspective, a newfound awareness of human potential, and the possibilities for progress, even amidst the ongoing struggles and contradictions of the time. What are your thoughts on this? Did the Renaissance live up to its own hype?
It's a complex question, isn't it? The Renaissance wasn't a monolithic period of unadulterated progress. It was a period of dramatic shifts in thinking, art, and culture, but also a time grappling with the darker aspects of human nature and societal ills. Rome played a central role in the Renaissance, with the popes becoming major patrons of the arts. What impact did this papal patronage have on the city and the art that was produced there?
The papal patronage was really instrumental in shaping the artistic landscape of Renaissance Rome. Popes like Pope Eugene V and Pope Nicholas V were deeply involved in commissioning works that would transformed the city. Think about Filaret, the Florentine artist,
Yeah.
commissioned by Pope Eugene V, to create those incredible bronze doors for old St. Peter's Basilica. It was like such a statement piece.
And then you have Leon Battista Alberti, like a true Renaissance man, whose talents spanned architecture, writing, and mathematics. He even proposed like a whole system for redesigning Rome, based on geometric principles centered around the Capitoline Hill. Imagine having that kind of vision for an entire city.
He totally embodies the spirit of the Renaissance, right? This like fusion of artistic vision and intellectual curiosity. And these popes weren't just religious leaders, they were cultural visionaries who understood the power of art and architecture to shape their city.
And this papal patronage attracted artists from all over Europe, creating this melting pot of styles and ideas. You see artists like Guido Angelico and Jean Fouquet creating frescoes in Old St. Peter's Basilica, showcasing that growing interest in Flemish painting and Northern European art.
It's like Rome became this artistic hub where different styles and techniques converged and influenced each other. And speaking of unique artistic styles, Venetian art had its own distinct flavor during the Renaissance.
Venice, that wealthy and powerful maritime republic, had an artistic style that was all its own, reflecting its political stability and cultural richness, unlike other parts of Italy, that were divided into these warring city-states. Venice enjoyed this period of relative peace and prosperity.
Exactly. And that stability and prosperity allowed Venetian art to flourish. It's known for its harmonious compositions and those vibrant colors.
And their use of color is so striking. It wasn't just about decoration. It was about evoking emotion and creating this sense of drama.
Absolutely. And they excelled at capturing the play of light and shadow, especially in their depictions of water and landscapes, giving their works this incredible luminosity and depth.
This is what you need to know.
It's interesting. Our sources mention how Venetian artists, like those in Florence, also embraced the concept of artistic patronage as a tool of government. It's like they understood that art could be this powerful way to promote their city's image and values.
This is like a form of soft power, right? Projecting an image of cultural sophistication and refinement to the world. And interestingly, while Venetian art was highly regarded outside of Italy, it was often overlooked by Italian art historians like Giorgio Vasari.
It's almost like Venetian art was ahead of its time, appreciated more by foreign audiences, who were drawn to its unique beauty and style. It makes you wonder how our perception of art is shaped by those cultural biases and prevailing trends.
It's a reminder that art history is always being written and rewritten as new perspectives emerge, and our understanding of the past evolves. And speaking of historical context, we can't talk about Venetian art without mentioning the crisis of the late Middle Ages, which played a significant role in shaping the cultural landscape of Europe.
It's almost like a prequel to the Renaissance, right? A time of upheaval and change. That set the stage for this period of rebirth.
Our sources describe this series of calamities in the 14th and 15th centuries. Demographic collapse due to the Black Death, political instability, religious upheavals. It was a period of profound disruption that shook the very foundations of medieval Europe.
Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for chaos. How did this crisis actually contribute to the rise of the Renaissance? Could it be that this period of instability challenged traditional ways of thinking and opened up space for new ideas and perspectives?
That's one theory. The Black Death, as devastating as it was, also led to economic changes, as we discussed. That shifted power dynamics and created new opportunities for social mobility. It disrupted the established order and forced people to adapt to a new reality.
Yeah, it's like the crisis shook things up, creating fertile ground for innovation and change. It's fascinating how sometimes destruction can be a catalyst for rebirth.
It's a powerful reminder that history is often cyclical, with periods of upheaval paving the way for periods of renewal and transformation. But there's also a debate among historians about whether the term crisis accurately reflects this period. Some argue that it was more of a transformation, like a gradual shift towards modernity.
Right, it wasn't just a sudden collapse, but a series of events that gradually reshaped European society. It's like a slow-burning fire that eventually transforms the landscape.
And some historians point to the Malthusian limit as a factor in this crisis. Essentially, the idea is that population growth eventually outstrips available resources, leading to hardship and instability.
It's a sobering thought, especially considering the environmental challenges we face today. It reminds us that sustainability and balance are crucial for long-term stability.
But our sources also mention counter-arguments to this Malthusian crisis theory. Some historians suggest that other factors, such as climate change and the transition to the Little Ice Age, might have played a more significant role in that agricultural decline that contributed to this period of instability.
Yeah, it's like this complex web of interconnected factors. And just like the origins of the Renaissance itself, there are multiple perspectives and interpretations. It really highlights how history is a dynamic process, open to ongoing debate and reinterpretation.
Now let's delve into the world of Renaissance humanism and how it influenced everything from education to literature to even the way people wrote and spoke Latin.
One of the most fascinating aspects of Renaissance humanism is this idea of ad fontes, meaning back to the sources. It was all about rediscovering and studying the original texts of classical antiquity.
Yeah, humanists saw these ancient Greek and Roman works as models of eloquence, wisdom, and style. They believed that by studying these texts, they could revive the spirit of classical learning and apply it to their own time.
Right. It wasn't just about memorizing facts. It was about understanding the principles and ideas that shaped those civilizations and using them to inform their own thinking and writing. They were seeking inspiration and guidance from the past to address the challenges of their present.
And this focus on classical sources had a significant impact on how people viewed and used Latin. It led to this desire to purify Latin from the medieval influences that had crept in over the centuries and return it to a form closer to how the Romans spoke and wrote it.
They wanted to speak and write Latin, the way Cicero and Virgil did. It's fascinating how they saw language as a way to connect with the past and revive that spirit of classical learning.
Exactly. They abandoned some of that medieval Latin vocabulary and stylistic quirks, and they looked to those classical authors as their guides. And this emphasis on classical Latin also influenced handwriting. Humanists developed a new script called Humanist Minuscule, which was more legible and elegant than the black-letter scripts used in the Middle Ages. It's actually the ancestor of many modern typefaces.
It's amazing how those seemingly small changes reflect a broader shift in thinking and aesthetics. It's like this visual manifestation of their desire for clarity, elegance, and a connection to the classical past.
Absolutely. And this attention to detail, this desire to revive and refine, speaks volumes about the humanist spirit.
Now let's explore how Renaissance humanism played out in different parts of Europe. It wasn't a uniform movement, right? It took on different characteristics, depending on the region and the people involved.
Right. It adapted and evolved as it spread, interacting with different cultures and traditions. For example, in Northern Europe, humanism was closely tied to religious reform. Think about Erasmus and Luther, both influenced by humanist ideas. They played key roles in challenging the authority of the Catholic Church and sparking the Protestant Reformation.
They weren't just studying ancient texts, they were applying those principles of critical thinking and textual analysis to religious doctrines. It's like they were using the tools of humanism to challenge the status quo and call for reform.
Precisely. They were using the same rigor and skepticism that humanists applied to classical literature to examine religious texts and question traditional interpretations.
And speaking of skepticism, Renaissance humanists weren't afraid to challenge traditional authorities, even in fields like science and medicine.
That's right. They weren't content to simply accept what had been passed down through generations. They wanted to observe, experiment, and test those theories for themselves.
And that spirit of inquiry led to some groundbreaking discoveries. Think about Copernicus and his heliocentric theory, which revolutionized our understanding of the universe. It challenged the long-held belief that the Earth was the center of everything and paved the way for a new era of astronomical exploration.
His work is a perfect example of how the Renaissance encouraged a shift from blind faith to empirical observation and critical thinking. And it's not just about scientific breakthroughs. This questioning spirit extended to art, literature, and even social structures.
And we can't forget about Leonardo da Vinci. He was a true Renaissance polymath, whose insatiable curiosity led him to explore everything from anatomy to engineering to painting. He was a true embodiment of the Renaissance ideal, of the universal man.
His work is a testament to the power of human curiosity and the transformative potential of questioning established norms. It's like the Renaissance unlocked this incredible thirst for knowledge and exploration That would continue to shape Western civilization for centuries to come.
So, while the Renaissance might have officially spanned a few centuries, its legacy of inquiry, innovation, and the celebration of human potential continues to resonate with us today.
Now let's shift gears and talk about how Renaissance art flourished not just in Italy, but across Europe. It wasn't confined to a single region. It spread and evolved, taking on unique characteristics in each country.
You're right. It's like a vibrant tapestry, woven with threads from different cultures and traditions. Let's start with France. The French Renaissance, while heavily influenced by Italian art and culture, developed its own distinct characteristics, blending classical elements with a more ornate and decorative style.
Think about those incredible chateaux of the Loire Valley. With their fairy tale turrets and elaborate gardens, they're like something out of a storybook.
Those grand residences showcased the wealth and power of the French aristocracy, and they became centers of Renaissance culture and learning. They weren't just beautiful buildings, they were symbols of a nation, embracing new artistic and intellectual trends.
And the French Renaissance wasn't just about architecture. It also saw a flourishing of literature. Writers like François Rabelais and Michel de Montaigne challenged traditional norms and explored new literary forms, engaging with humanist ideas and questioning the world around them.
Rabelais' satirical works like Gargantua and Pantagruel poked fun at authority and celebrated the joys of life. It's like he was using humor and wit to challenge convention and spark intellectual debate.
And Montaigne's essays are so insightful and introspective. He explored a wide range of topics, from philosophy to personal experience, in this thoughtful and engaging way. It's like he's inviting us to join him on a journey of self-discovery and reflection.
And we can't forget about the significant advancements in music. During the French Renaissance, composers like Claudine de Sermacy and Clément Joniquin were developing the chanson, a secular vocal composition that became incredibly popular throughout Europe.
And Janikin's La Guerre, which depicts the sounds of battle, is a particularly striking example of how Renaissance composers were experimenting with new ways to create vivid and evocative musical experiences. It's like they were pushing the boundaries of what music could express, capturing the drama and intensity of life through sound.
It's a testament to the creativity and innovation that characterized the Renaissance across all artistic disciplines. Now let's journey north to Germany, where the Renaissance took on a more serious and intellectual tone, shaped by the profound religious and social changes of the Reformation.
Yeah, the German Renaissance was heavily influenced by the Protestant Reformation, wasn't it? It emphasized simplicity, piety, and the importance of the individual's relationship with God.
Exactly. We see those themes reflected in the art and literature of the German Renaissance. Think about Albrecht Dürer, whose work we discussed earlier. He was a key figure, not just for his artistic mastery, but also for his humanist ideals and his engagement with religious and philosophical ideas.
His woodcuts and engravings, which often depicted religious themes, also explored humanist ideas about the dignity of man and the importance of reason. He was bridging the gap between faith and humanism, expressing the spiritual and intellectual currents of the time.
And German Renaissance literature was dominated by figures like Martin Luther, whose translation of the Bible into German had a profound impact on language and culture.
Absolutely. It made the scriptures accessible to ordinary people, empowering them to interpret the Bible for themselves and challenging the authority of the Catholic Church. It was a major step toward literacy and individual religious experience.
And we can't overlook the development of humanist education in Germany. During this period, scholars like Philipp Melanchthon advocated for a curriculum that balanced classical learning with Christian faith, creating a model for education that emphasized both intellectual and spiritual growth.
It's like they were seeking to create a new kind of education that would prepare individuals for both secular and spiritual life, equipping them with the knowledge and critical thinking skills to navigate a rapidly changing world.
Exactly. It's a testament to how the Renaissance fostered a holistic approach to learning and personal development.
Now let's shift our focus to the Netherlands, which was experiencing a golden age during the Renaissance, a period of remarkable artistic innovation, economic prosperity, and a relative tolerance of religious diversity.
The Dutch Renaissance was this vibrant hub of cultural exchange and intellectual ferment.
Absolutely. And we see this reflected in the art of the time. Flemish painters, as we've discussed, were renowned for their mastery of oil painting and their incredibly realistic and detailed depictions of the world around them. Think about Jan van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait with its meticulous detail and symbolic richness. It's a masterpiece of observation and technical skill.
It's like he's inviting us to step into the scene, to examine every detail and unravel its hidden meanings.
And then there's Hieronymus Bosch, whose fantastical and often disturbing paintings explored the darker side of human nature and the anxieties of a changing world. His work, while often enigmatic, continues to fascinate and challenge viewers, centuries later.
His work is a reminder that the Renaissance wasn't just about beauty and harmony, it was also about exploring the complexities of human experience, including its darker aspects.
And the Dutch Renaissance wasn't just about painting, it also saw a flourishing of science, philosophy, and literature. Think about Erasmus, that humanist scholar whose critical edition of the New Testament had a profound impact on biblical studies and religious reform.
Yeah, he was a champion of critical thinking and a pioneer in textual analysis. His work challenged traditional interpretations and opened up new avenues for understanding the Bible.
And let's not forget Hugo Grotius, a jurist and philosopher who laid the foundations for international law. With his work on the law of war and peace, he grappled with complex ethical and legal questions about war, peace, and the relations between states, issues that are still relevant today.
It's incredible how these Dutch thinkers were engaging with issues that continue to shape our world centuries later. Their work reminds us that the Renaissance wasn't just a historical period, it was a period of intellectual ferment. That laid the groundwork for many of the ideas and principles we still value today.
Now let's cross the channel to England, where the Renaissance arrived a bit later, but had a profound impact on literature and culture, ushering in what's often considered the golden age of English literature.
The Elizabethan era, which coincided with the English Renaissance, was a time of great cultural flourishing. It was the era of Shakespeare, his plays, with their timeless themes of love, betrayal, ambition, and revenge, continue to be performed and studied around the world.
His works are so rich and complex, he explored the depths of human experience, from the heights of comedy to the depths of tragedy, and captured the spirit of a nation undergoing dramatic social and political changes.
His ability to capture the nuances of human emotion and the complexities of human relationships is truly remarkable. His works are timeless, speaking to our shared human experience across centuries and cultures.
And it wasn't just Shakespeare. Other playwrights, like Christopher Marlowe and Ben Jonson, were also writing brilliant and innovative works for the stage. Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, with its exploration of ambition and the dangers of knowledge, is a particularly striking example of the intellectual and spiritual themes that were preoccupying Renaissance thinkers.
It's like a cautionary tale about the pursuit of knowledge and power, warning against the temptation to overreach our human limitations.
And English Renaissance literature wasn't limited to the stage. Poets like Edmund Spenser were also making significant contributions. His epic poem, The Faerie Queene, is a masterpiece of allegory and symbolism, blending elements of chivalry, courtly love, and the search for moral virtue.
His work respects the influence of classical literature, but also engages with the social and political issues of his time, using allegory and symbolism to explore complex themes of power, morality, and the human condition.
It's like they were weaving together threads of ancient wisdom and contemporary concerns to create something new and unique, something that reflected the spirit of their age.
And alongside these literary achievements, the English Renaissance also saw the emergence of new philosophical and scientific ideas. Think about Francis Bacon, who advocated for a more empirical and inductive approach to knowledge, emphasizing observation and experimentation as the foundations of scientific inquiry.
His work was groundbreaking. He was challenging traditional methods of knowledge acquisition and paving the way for the scientific revolution that would follow in the 17th century.
Yeah, his emphasis on empirical evidence and a systematic approach to knowledge would have a profound impact on the development of modern science.
It's like the English Renaissance was planting the seeds for a new era of scientific discovery, one that would challenge traditional authorities and transform our understanding of the natural world.
It was a time of incredible intellectual ferment, a period of transition that would lay the groundwork for the Enlightenment and the modern world. Now let's journey eastward to explore the Renaissance in Poland, a nation that was experiencing a golden age of its own during this period.
The Polish Renaissance was marked by intellectual ferment, artistic innovation, and a flourishing of culture and learning, all fueled by a spirit of tolerance and a desire to engage with new ideas. Poland was known for its universities, which attracted scholars from all over Europe, and for its vibrant intellectual life.
It was a place where ideas were freely exchanged, where different cultures and traditions mingled, and where innovation was encouraged.
In Polish Renaissance art and architecture, blended Italian influences with local traditions, creating a unique style that reflected the nation's cultural heritage. Think about the Wawel Castle in Krakow, a masterpiece of Renaissance architecture that served as the royal residence.
It's a stunning example of how Polish architects adapted Renaissance styles to create something unique and distinctly Polish.
And Polish Renaissance literature was dominated by figures like Jan Kochanowski, whose poems in Polish helped to elevate the vernacular language to a level of literary prestige. It's like they were reclaiming their own language and culture, expressing their national identity through art and literature.
Yeah, it was a movement towards cultural independence, a celebration of Polish identity within the broader context of the European Renaissance.
And the Polish Renaissance also saw significant advancements in science and astronomy. We've already talked about Nicholas Copernicus, whose revolutionary heliocentric theory challenged the long-held belief in a geocentric universe, forever changing our understanding of our place in the cosmos.
His work is a testament to the intellectual boldness of the Polish Renaissance, its willingness to challenge traditional authorities and embrace new ways of thinking.
It's remarkable how Poland, a nation on the periphery of Europe, became a center of intellectual and cultural innovation during the Renaissance, making significant contributions to art, literature, science, and philosophy. Now let's turn our attention to the Iberian Peninsula, where the Renaissance unfolded in both Spain and Portugal, each country experiencing this transformative period in its own unique way.
The Spanish Renaissance, while heavily influenced by Italian art and culture, was characterized by a blend of religious fervor and humanist ideals. It was a time of intense spirituality and intellectual exploration, marked by both artistic innovation and religious conflict.
We see this reflected in the art of the time, right? Spanish Renaissance art often depicted religious themes, but it also explored humanist ideas about the dignity of man and the beauty of the natural world. It's like a fusion of faith and reason, a quest for understanding, both the divine and the human.
Exactly. And one of the most striking figures in Spanish Renaissance art is El Greco. His paintings with their elongated figures and mystical intensity, they capture a sense of spiritual yearning that was characteristic of this period.
Yeah, his work is so powerful. It's like he's trying to convey something beyond the physical realm, reaching for a deeper spiritual truth.
And in literature, you have the towering figure of Miguel de Cervantes, whose novel Don Quixote is considered a cornerstone of Western literature.
That story of the idealistic knight-errant, tilting at windmills, is so captivating. It's funny and tragic, but also deeply insightful about human nature and the power of dreams.
It's a masterpiece that transcends its time, exploring universal themes of idealism, disillusionment, and the human condition. And the Spanish Renaissance also saw the emergence of new philosophical and theological ideas, with thinkers like Francisco Suarez grappling with the complex relationship between faith and reason.
He was trying to bridge those two worlds to find a way to reconcile Aristotelian philosophy with Catholic theology. It's a testament to the intellectual depth of the Spanish Renaissance, its willingness to engage with difficult questions and seek new understandings.
Absolutely. It was a time of both religious fervor and intellectual curiosity, a period of profound transformation that left a lasting mark on Spanish culture and history. Now let's turn our attention to Portugal, a nation that was experiencing a golden age of exploration and discovery during the Renaissance.
The Portuguese Renaissance was all about pushing boundaries, exploring new frontiers, and expanding the limits of knowledge. It's like they had this insatiable thirst for adventure and a desire to connect with the wider world.
Yeah, the Portuguese explorers were charting new sea routes to Asia and Africa, opening up new trade routes and bringing back exotic goods and knowledge to Europe. It was a time of incredible excitement and discovery, a period of rapid expansion that would transform Portugal's place in the world.
Think about Vasco da Gama's voyage to India, which opened up a new era of global trade and cultural exchange. It's incredible to think about the courage and determination it took to embark on such a journey into the unknown.
It was a pivotal moment in history, marking a shift towards globalization and the interconnectedness of different cultures, and Portuguese Renaissance art and architecture reflect this spirit of exploration, often incorporating nautical themes and exotic motifs, blending European styles with influences from the newly discovered lands.
The Jerónimos Monastery in Lisbon is a perfect example. That masterpiece of Manueline architecture is so ornate and intricate with its nautical themes and symbols of exploration. It's like a testament to Portugal's maritime prowess and its connections to the wider world.
It's a stunning example of how Portuguese Renaissance art and architecture embraced the spirit of discovery and the fusion of different cultures.
And Portuguese Renaissance literature also reflects this spirit of adventure writer. Writers like Luís Vaz de Camões celebrated the exploits of Portuguese explorers in epic poems like Os Lusíadas, telling the story of Vasco da Gama's voyage to India and capturing the spirit of a nation on the cusp of global greatness.
Yeah, it's a celebration of Portuguese exploration and a testament to the power of human ambition and the drive to explore the unknown.
So we see how the Renaissance unfolded in different ways across Europe, each region embracing its core values and adapting them to its own unique circumstances. It's like a multifaceted jewel, with each facet reflecting a different aspect of this complex and fascinating era.
It's a reminder that historical movements are rarely monolithic. They adapt and evolve as they encounter different cultures and traditions, creating a rich and diverse tapestry of human experience.
Now let's step back and consider the broader impact and legacy of the Renaissance. What are some of the key ideas and values that emerged from this period and continue to shape our world today?
The Renaissance wasn't just a historical period. It was a cultural movement that had a profound and lasting impact on Western civilization. It's hard to overstate its significance in shaping our modern world.
One of the most enduring legacies of the Renaissance is humanism. This emphasis on human potential, the power of reason, and the importance of individual achievement continues to resonate with us today. It's like the Renaissance planted the seeds for our modern ideas about individualism, self-reliance, and the pursuit of excellence.
Right, humanism challenged that medieval focus on divine authority and shifted attention towards human capabilities and the potential for human progress. It sparked a spirit of inquiry and a belief in the power of reason to understand the world around us.
And the Renaissance also left behind an incredible artistic heritage, from the masterpieces of Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci to the exquisite tapestries of the Flemish weavers. These works of art continue to inspire and amaze us centuries later.
The Renaissance saw a flourishing of creativity across all artistic disciplines: painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, music, and theater. And these works weren't just aesthetically pleasing, they also explored complex themes, challenged social norms, and reflected the intellectual and spiritual currents of the time.
We see the influence of the Renaissance everywhere. Our education system is still heavily influenced by humanist ideals. Our architecture often incorporates Renaissance motifs, and our appreciation for art, literature, and music is deeply rooted in the Renaissance tradition.
The Renaissance wasn't just a moment in time. It was a cultural shift that continues to inform our values, our beliefs, and our aspirations.
So the Renaissance laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution, sparked new ideas about art and beauty, and shaped our modern understanding of human potential and the possibilities for progress. What a remarkable legacy.
It's a testament to the enduring power of human creativity, curiosity, and the desire to understand ourselves and the world around us.
But the Renaissance wasn't without its flaws and contradictions, as we've discussed. What can we learn from its mistakes and apply to our own time?
That's a crucial question. While the Renaissance was a time of great progress, it also witnessed the rise of new forms of conflict and inequality. It's a reminder that progress isn't always linear, and that human nature, with its capacity for both good and evil, remains a constant throughout history.
It's a cautionary tale, reminding us that even as we strive for progress, we must be mindful of the potential for unintended consequences. and the need to address social injustices.
Exactly. We can learn from the Renaissance by embracing its spirit of inquiry and innovation, but also by acknowledging its complexities and contradictions.
So what does it all mean for us today? What can we take away from this deep dive into the Renaissance and apply to our own lives?
I think one of the most important lessons of the Renaissance is the power of human potential. It's a reminder that we are capable of great things, that we can achieve extraordinary things when we embrace our creativity, our curiosity, and our desire to learn and grow.
It's a message of hope and empowerment. It's about believing in our ability to make a difference in the world, to challenge the status quo, and to strive for a better future.
Absolutely. The Renaissance reminds us that progress is possible, that we can overcome challenges, and that we have a responsibility to use our talents and knowledge to make the world a better place.
It's also a reminder that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from the past, draw inspiration from those who came before us, and build upon their achievements.
The Renaissance was all about rediscovering and reimagining the past, applying ancient wisdom to contemporary problems, and creating something new and innovative in the process.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the Renaissance, let's keep in mind that its legacy isn't just about historical facts and figures. It's about a mindset, a way of approaching the world with curiosity, creativity, and a belief in the power of human potential.
It's about embracing the spirit of inquiry, challenging assumptions, and never stopping learning and growing.
Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into the Renaissance. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. We encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating and transformative period in history, and to consider how its legacy continues to shape our world today. Thanks for joining us.
This is your need to know.
The future shifts with every turn, lessons learned and quickly unlearned. Waltzing through the absurd, stepping to a puzzling world. Life's a dance of pure surprising, always strange disguise. So let's not fight this crazy world, but join the dance, this topsy-turvy twirl. For in the end the joke's on no one, when we all just learn to have fun. Waltzing through the absurd, stepping to a puzzling world. Life's a dance of pure surprising, all this strange disguise. So let's not fight this crazy world, but join the dance, this topsy-turvy twirl. For in the end the joke's on no one, when we all just learn to have fun. Born into a world so strange, where logic seems to rearrange the rules we thought we understood, twist and turn as they should. Waltzing through the absurd, stepping to a puzzling world. Life's a pure surprise, embracing all the strange disguise. Let's not fight this strange disguise. So let's not fight this crazy world, but join the dance, this topsy-turvy twirl. For in the end the joke's on no one, when we all